ladies and gentlemen, to the She Knows Pro Football podcast. Once again, I'm Alice, and I have my good friend Dominick online, who's going to help me make some picks for this week. Didn't do as well last week, but I think we're on track this week. A lot of injury going on, so might make some of our picks a lot easier. So our first matchup, we got Tennessee Titans versus Jacksonville Jaguars in Jacksonville. Dominick, who you got?
As good as the defense actually played last week against Houston, and I know everybody loves Gardner Minshew, and Leonard Fournette's actually doing good this year, I'm going to have to go with Tennessee. I know they lost last week, but they're playing really well right now, and I just think their defense is going to be able to hold down what little offense Jacksonville has, so I'm going to have to take Tennessee in this one.
I love the first game that Gardner Minshew started, but he didn't have quite enough, and I don't particularly care for the receivers they have there. I have high hopes that Leonard Fournette will be able to put some numbers on the ground this season, but I don't know with them. And this whole Jalen Ramsey thing, we don't even know that by Thursday he'll even still be there. And if he is, how long they'll have him playing, considering the contentious relationship they have. Jacksonville is kind of iffy, like I said, for me. Tennessee, meanwhile, at some point I feel like they may have to move on from Marcus Mariota. I feel like he's an okay quarterback, not a great quarterback. But we'll see. He's serviceable, let's say that. And I love Derrick Henry. This kid is amazing. I've met him in person. He's huge. And bringing him down is not an easy feat for anyone. I feel like this is definitely a matchup that Tennessee should win, like I said, with them starting Gardner Minshew again. So, yeah, I definitely feel like the Titans are going to pull this one off. Next up, we got Cincinnati Bengals versus the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. Dominick, who you got?
Cincinnati just got shellacked last week after I chose them to win, so I can't go with them this week. My man, Josh Allen, looks like he's getting better. He actually learned how to throw the ball over the offseason, which is great. They still don't really have a running game, especially now that Singletary may not play this week, but the Infinity Stone there, Frank Gore, probably will just have 30 rushes for 80 yards and a touchdown. Not going to be efficient, but he'll be out there and he'll get the job done. I like John Brown in this matchup as well. I have to take the Buffalo defense over this Bengals offense, so I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills at home in this one.
I've got to agree with you 100% on that. The Bengals are just terrible. I mean, I haven't seen anything like it. They're going to get some wins at some point in the season. I just don't know when, and I don't know who against. The Bills, meanwhile, their defense has been steadily racking up point on my bench, I should mention, and have looked stout this season. They're looking a lot better even than they did last season, which I was surprised by. Again, like you said, Josh Allen is really stepped up and looking even better than he did last year. People now know how to play defense against him, but I still feel like he has a great arm and is going to be a talented quarterback going forward. So I have high hopes for him in the future. And like you said, we don't know what's going to happen with Singletary, but the forever young Frank Gore is still there. So I have no worries about them. So I'm definitely got to pick Buffalo in that game. Next up, we got Miami Dolphins. Should we just move on, Dominick, from the Miami Dolphins and Dallas Cowboys game?
Yeah, this game is actually a bigger favorite for the Cowboys than the Patriots were last week against the Dolphins. So the only thing you need to know about this game is start all your Cowboys, including their defense.
Absolutely. I mean, you have any receiver, running back, defense, whoever, kicker, whoever you have that's playing against the Dolphins, please absolutely start them this week because they're all going to see the ball. The Dolphins are a dumpster fire at this point, and they're having a fire sale trying to get rid of everyone. No hopes for them this season. Would not even be surprised at this point if they finish the season 0-16. So yeah, absolutely start any Cowboy you have on your bench and definitely take the Cowboys in this game. Next up, we got the Denver Broncos versus the Green Bay Packers in Green Bay. Dominick, who you got?
I know you're a Broncos fan, but I am a Packers fan this year. I love Aaron Rodgers this year. He hasn't started off as strong as I thought he would, but they did beat a good Minnesota Vikings team last week at home. They're getting set. I believe they play the Eagles next week, so they're getting set for another tough matchup. But I do think they'll be able to pull this one out against Denver, who lost a heartbreaker last week. Who knew Chicago actually had somebody who could make a kick? So, I was really rooting for the Broncos last week. I thought they were going to pull it out, and they didn't. But in this one, unfortunately, I do feel that the Packers are probably going to win it by double digits.
Who leaves a receiver open on 4th and 15? My goodness.
The Atlanta
Denver,
Falcons against the Eagles. That's who.
Touche. The Broncos shot themselves in the foot last week. I can't feel sorry for them when you leave someone that wide open with 5 seconds left in the game. I'm sorry. That falls on them completely. Their defense, that right there showed me that their secondary is not as efficient as it has been in the past. And I think that's still continued to be a major issue throughout the rest of this season. I do not have high hope for Joe Flacco, even though Emmanuel Sanders has looked great, even though Philip Lindsay has looked great. I don't know how many games Joe Flacco can hold up. He is not an elite quarterback. Let's just get that out the way. I don't know if at some point they'll switch over to Drew Lock. We'll see. So I have no high expectations for them. And again, like I said, that's my team. That being said, they're playing in Green Bay. The Packers are outside of their division rivals. The Packers play damn good at Lambeau Field. And I have great expectation for Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Jones. So I don't think it's going to be, I don't want to say it's not going to be a blowout, but it's not going to be close either. Packers should win this easily by 2 touchdowns. So I'm definitely taking the Packers in that one. Next up, we have the Atlanta Falcons versus the Indianapolis Colts. In Indianapolis, Dominic, who you got?
The Colts, this is going to be a tough one. The Colts actually got the win last week. I actually thought they would against the Titans, and they did go down there and pull it out in the end. It wasn't a great day for, Brissett, unfortunately, but he came through. Marlon Mack came through. T.Y. Hilton had another touchdown, which you love to see. The Atlanta Falcons are still playing in the Dome. They still have Julio Jones. Although Matt Ryan has been playing great this year, he does lead the league in interceptions with 5, but we do have Devontae Freeman. Hopefully he can come back and do something this week as well. But being at home, I know they don't have Andrew Luck, but I'm going to have to take the Colts here with a slight edge over the Falcons, and I'm going to have to go with the Colts in this one, but it's a tough game for me to choose.
Now, this is one that is a little tougher for me to choose because Jacoby Brissett last week really impressed me. Funny thing, I picked him up as a backup quarterback for a friend of mine, and he went off, and he actually outscored me because I picked up Jacoby Brissett for him. I think Marlon Mack is going to have impressive numbers this year. I'm hoping for a 1,000-yard rushing season, but that's if they lean on him as much as I hope that they will. We'll see what happens as far as that's concerned. Still, Indy has a great defense. I really expect them to do a lot better than a lot of people are anticipating with the loss of Andrew Luck, because people seem to not fully understand how good Jacoby Brissett really is. But they're going to see coming forward. Atlanta, like you said, Matt Ryan is still out there throwing INTs, which we expect, but he has 2 of the best receivers in the league in Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones, and we saw that last week. So with the healthy Devonta Freeman, this team should do really well in that NFC South division, especially now with question marks surrounding Cam Newton's health and with the loss of Drew Brees for the next 6 weeks. So expect Atlanta to try and really take over that division during this open window right here. So I'm definitely going to take the Falcons in this game. Next up, we got the Baltimore Ravens versus the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City. Dominic, who you got?
I know the Ravens have a great defense. They may have the best defense in the league this year. The matchups don't matter against Patrick Mahomes. I know they don't have Tyreek Hill here. I know the running game's, a little banged up right now. We'll see who's going to be the bell cow back there, if they're going to even have one, if they have McCoy this week, if they have Williams this week. But for some reason, being in Arrowhead, that's the toughest stadium to play in the league. I believe it's, even though it's outdoor, they get loud there. So I have to go with Patrick Mahomes here, unfortunately. I know Lamar Jackson playing great. I think it's going to be a high scoring game, probably both teams in the high 20s to low 30s, but I do think that Mahomes is going to outperform Lamar Jackson just enough to get the Chiefs the win in this one.
Chiefs are going to have to win their game, as I said last week, by running up the score on you. They do not have a strong defense, but they have a hell of an offense, no matter who is back there at running back. I expect good numbers from Shady while he's playing, but they may go to a running back by committee system, which I'm fine with. I don't have their running back. Patrick Mahomes look unstoppable at this point. I know people say don't draft quarterbacks early in fantasy. You made a mistake if you drafted number 1 overall and didn't get Patrick Mahomes. You're kicking yourself right now. I love the Chiefs as far as playing there in their home field at Arrowhead Stadium. Baltimore, I think they're going to play well. I expect big things out of Lamar, and we'll see what happens, especially that combination of Lamar Jackson and Hollywood Brown. That is turning into a show to watch. But again, they're playing in Kansas City. If they were playing in Baltimore, I would probably lean more towards Baltimore. But in Kansas City, that loud, super aggressive crowd that they have there, I got to pick the Chiefs. I'm along with you on that one. Definitely got to pick the Chiefs in that one. Next up, Oakland Raiders versus the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota. Dominic, who you got?
Both these teams look pretty bad. I mean, I know Oakland won in week 1, but they weren't as good as they played in week 1. They looked dreadful last week. I think they're going to look dreadful again this week against Minnesota's defense, which is much better than the Chiefs' defense was last week. I know the Vikings don't really have an offense right now other than Dalvin Cook, but I think this may be a coming out party a little bit for Cousins as well as Thielen and or Diggs. I think we're going to see at least a couple of touchdown passes from Cousins as well as another one from Dalvin Cook. So I have to go with the Vikings here to win it at home.
Oakland Raiders look good in week 1 because they were playing the Denver Broncos. Let's not forget that Denver is 0-2 right now, and they are not playing good ball at all. So I'm not going to give them credit for that win. I'm just not. They're facing the Vikings. Vikings, like you said, on offense, I don't know. Kirk Cousins has been throwing interceptions, but the main thing has been that where's Stephon Diggs been these last few weeks? Where has Adam Thielen been? Stephon Diggs, if you have him right now, you are pissed because you're not getting a whole bunch of points. They have not been really targeting him, and that's an issue. I understand that they, in week 1, they really went to a ground game and really showed off Dalvin Cook and what they can do with him, and I appreciate that. He's a phenomenal running back. So, yeah, I'm definitely going to have to go with the Vikings at home in this situation. Next up, New York Jets versus the New England Patriots in New England. Again, this is another one of those matchups. Do we even need to talk about this a whole lot, Dominic?
No, we don't really need to talk about this. When we talked about the point spreads a little bit in some of these games, this point spread is actually higher than the Cowboys versus Dolphins point spread. This one's actually 22.5 points. Wow. You know, the only thing I have to say about this game is I know you flew into New York for a blind date last week, and I know you had mono before you went there. I hope you got over that before you had that special blind date that you went on.
Shh, no one knew that. The even worse for them, not just the fact that they're still without Sam Darnold, is the fact that now they're also without Trevor Siemian, because Trevor Siemian broke his ankle and is out for the season. This means they're now down to Falk as their starting quarterback. I'm so scared for them. Even with Lev Bell, because they can only lean so much on Le'Veon Bell. I don't know if Falk can get the ball downfield to Robbie Anderson the way Trevor was getting it to him last night. And if they have to rely heavily on that run game, people are going to stack the box, and we're not going to see a whole lot out of Lev, which kills me again because he's on my fantasy team, but that's neither here nor there. Patriots, meanwhile, Patriots going to Patriots. So let's just be clear. They're going to be hard to beat this season. I'm expecting them to get losses. This definitely will not be one of them. So definitely take the Pats in this game.
Now, before we move on, I do have a question for you. I know it's always misquoted, so it's all right for me to say this, but do you think that Tom Brady is going to go up to Falk before the game and say, "Luke, I am your father"?
Good one. And that might be a possibility, or at least after the game for sure. Next up, we got Detroit Lions versus the Philadelphia Eagles in Philly. Dominic, who you got?
It's going to be a tough the Eagles are by far the better team in this one, but Detroit is healthier right now. They have Kerryon Johnson, who just looked great last week and looked okay in week 1. They do have a couple of solid receivers. Galladay's been playing well as Marvin Jones. We'll have to see what Stafford does outdoors. He had a good game in week 1 in Arizona on a grass field. He's going to be in another grass field on this one. The Eagles, I think they have enough firepower to do it with Miles Sanders. The only issue I have is that Deshaun Jackson has already been ruled out. Looks like Alshon Jeffrey is also going to be out this week. That's not confirmed yet, but it looks like he is going to be out. They're going to have to rely heavily on Zach Ertz. They did that last week. He had 16 targets last week in week 2 against Atlanta. Based on necessity, they're going to have to count on Aguilar, who came out on Twitter with like a Tim Tebow speech there in a tweet, and they're going to have to go with their rookie JJ Arcega-Whiteside. So if they can hold up, and I think they can, and get against this defense, then I think the Eagles are going to win this one.
I like the Eagles at home, even with, D-Jax being out. I feel like they have a lot more that they need to prove. They need to prove that they are at least as good, if not better, than the Dallas Cowboys, who everyone is just giving them the runaway success and giving the entire NFC East division to. And we're only 3 weeks into the season, so I need everybody to calm down real quick. Detroit, meanwhile, I always have questions when it comes to Matthew Stafford. He hasn't lived up to the expectations that have been put on him, but he's not a terrible quarterback. He's a serviceable, good quarterback, and I appreciate that about him. I wish he would get the ball more to Marvin Jones for my own personal sake, but I like that he's getting it to Kenny Galladay, and I think Kerryon Johnson is going to have another great season this year. I'm going to have to go the other way. With so many question marks about players being out for the Eagles, I think the Lions might be able to pull this one out. I think the Lions might get this one on Sunday. Next up, we got the Carolina Panthers versus the Arizona Cardinals. Dominic, who you got?
Obviously, the Carolina Panthers are the better team. I mean, they have most likely the best running back in the league in Christian McCaffrey. They have a good receiver in DJ Moore, who's 5th in the league right now in targets. Everybody's favorite, Curtis Samuel coming into the year. He's still there. He hasn't been as good as everybody thought he was, but he's decent. The only problem we have here is that Cam Newton may not play. It looks like his non-existent foot injury has crept up again, and now they're saying, it is an issue. So he might not play this week. If he doesn't play, it's going to be Will Grier, which from talking to a lot of Carolina Panthers fans that I know, they're happy about that. They'd rather have Will Grier in there. So whether it be Will Grier or Cam Newton, I actually think Will Grier might be better against this Arizona team that he can throw the ball downfield, whereas Cam Newton really can't. The secondary is still banged up. Obviously, they have their one secondary or starting cornerback is on IR. The other one, Peterson, is still suspended. So either way, no matter who plays in this game, I do think it's going to be a close one, but I think the Panthers are going to be able to pull it out.
I like Kyler Murray, and I think that he's going to have a bright future in the NFL if he stays healthy. David Johnson, if they leaned a little more heavily on him, I feel like they could get something done. Larry Fitzgerald is a legend, hopefully a Hall of Famer one day once his career is over. That defense, though, again, like you said, with Patrick Peterson still out for 3 more weeks, they are looking very suspect right now, and I can't count on them to be able to pull out really tough games, regardless of who is starting at quarterback for the Panthers. Like you said, they have a very stout offense. We got Christian McCaffrey. We got DJ Moore, who's scoring a lot of points on my bench. Don't know why I haven't started him. So that being said, I'm with you on this. I think the Panthers are definitely going to pull this out. Until Cardinals get Patrick Peterson back, I think a lot of these close, tough games are going to be hard for them to win. So definitely take the Panthers in that one. Next up, we got New York Giants versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Tampa. Dominic, who you got?
Daniel Jones is going to be starting this one. I think at this point, he's much better for this offense than Eli Manning is. Everybody loves Tampa Bay's offense. O.J. Howard did absolutely nothing last week, but Mike Evans is still a top 5 receiver. Chris Godwin is up there now and probably the top 10 to 15 receiver for the year. They actually had a little bit of a running game last week. They gave 23 carries to Peyton Barber for 80 yards. And I just think that Jameis Winston might actually have a good game here. I want to take the Giants here as much as I don't like them, but again, they burnt me last week as well. But I just think that their offense is going to do a lot better with Daniel Jones, but their defense is still just trash, and I have to take the Tampa Bay here at home in the heat.
Tampa Bay run game. Is it Rojo? Is it Barber? We literally don't know from week to week who's going to be the starter, who's going to be the one that's getting the numbers. You just don't know with them. And so you can't really count on them in as far as their run game is concerned. However, they do have a really good passing game. And he has really great receivers, like you said, in Mike Evans and in Godwin. I wish he'd get it more to Howard, but we'll see how that goes going forward. Giants, I think the move to Daniel Jones right now is the right decision at the right time. It's time to see what the kid can do, to see if he can make a turnaround for this team. He's got good receivers. He's got a phenomenal running back in the backfield. They should do a lot better. If they could just handle the porous defense that they have that just hemorrhages points away for them, they would be a decent team. Will they be competitive in their division? Absolutely not. But can they at least pull out now with Daniel Jones starting? Could they pull out, let's say, a 6-10 season? I think so, but we'll see. That being said, I'm not taking them in this game. I definitely want to go with the Buccaneers in this game. I just feel like they just have more offensive weapons, and that defense the Giants defense just isn't going to step up and get it done.
I'm not one into conspiracy theories, but, I'm just saying that Eli Manning is 116 and 116 in his career, so there might be something to why either they pulled him or maybe he said, hey, I don't want to have a losing record at the end of my career.
And you might be right about that. And this might be the final season for him. And if so, then going out 500 on your career, nothing wrong with that. And 2 Super Bowls, so nothing wrong with that if that's what he decides. Next up, we got Houston Texans versus the Los Angeles Chargers in Los Angeles. Dominic, who you got?
The Houston Texans had an ugly game last week. They barely beat the Jaguars and, kept my survivor pool pick here alive. Luckily, I didn't take him in any of my real survivor pools just because I wanted to go with somebody who wasn't a major favorite. But, he just looked bad. He had less than 200 yards. He was still getting sacked all over the place. This offensive line is just trash. DeAndre Hopkins only had 40 yards. It looks like Carlos Hyde is actually the bigger beneficiary than Duke Johnson, although Duke Johnson obviously has the receptions going for him. But Carlos Hyde is the main back there. You're not going to beat this team through the air when it comes to the Chargers. You're going to beat them on the ground, so you're going to have to hope that they're able to do that. But in this one, with Austin Eckler having another great game last week, the Chargers being back at home, Houston's defense, especially their secondary, is just awful. I think that Rivers and Keenum are going to light this team up as well as Mike Williams. So I have to go with the Chargers here by a touchdown.
Texans, for the love of God, can you get an offensive line? That's all I ask. Deshaun Watson should not spend 99% of a game on his back. That is just ridiculous to me. Maybe you should call up the Redskins and see what they want in order to get Trent Williams. Do something, people, because this is ridiculous. This child is going to get killed out there if they don't get an offensive line. I like his offensive weapons. I do. I like Fuller. I like Nuke, but come on now. If he can only continue like this he's not gonna last through the season if he keeps ending up on his back like that. That being said, Chargers, Phillip Rivers is an icon. There's not much you can say about him. Keenan Allen, always been one of his best and biggest targets. And, has Williams on the other side whenever they double cover Keenan, so not an issue there. Austin Eckler is proving that Melvin Gordon might have made a mistake on holding out. I know he's going crazy. He's probably my top scorer every single week, and I appreciate him very much. And I just feel like with the way the Texans defense has been playing, I don't think that they'll be able to stop the Chargers from scoring. And as much time as Deshaun is ending up on his back, I don't know that he's going to make it through some of these games. I don't think that they'll be able to keep up with the scoring of the Chargers. So yeah, I'm going to take the Chargers mainly because they're at home, and they do play a little bit better when they're there in their stadium. Next up, we got Pittsburgh Steelers versus the San Francisco 49ers in San Fran. Dominic, who you got?
Yeah, Pittsburgh, obviously they lost Big Ben. Now they're going to the Big Bell Bottom, so they're going to have a tough road trip. We don't know if they're going to have James Conner or not. If he doesn't play, they'll have Jalen Samuels, but he's not as good as James Conner, although he is a good running back. But just with, Mason Rudolph, there, and throwing with, James Washington, obviously they have that big connection at Oklahoma State. The secondary in San Francisco may be bad, but they're not as bad as the defenses in the Big 12. So I am going to have to go with San Francisco here. I think Jimmy G's going to be able to light up this team pretty good with the running backs they had there. They had a monster game last week with Breida having over 100 yards, Wilson having 2 touchdowns, and Mostert having 15 fantasy points as well. Obviously, Dante Pettis has been having a bad year. Everybody's down on him, but Deebo Samuel has really stepped up, and I think he's going to be able to step up again, even with the new acquisition of Minkah Fitzpatrick there for the Steelers. So I'm going to have to take the 49ers here to win their home opener.
Gotta say, I love the addition of Minkah Fitzpatrick on that Steelers defense. I think that was an exceptional move on their part. That being said, the fact that they are without Big Ben and Mason Rudolph is going to get the start, I don't know how well he's going to play. I just don't. I don't have enough film footage on him to tell you whether or not he's going to be able to face this 49ers defense and play well through the entire game. With that being such a big question mark and the health of James Conner, I can't pick them. I feel bad that I can't pick them. But the 49ers, meanwhile, Jimmy G is out there trying to put on a show and prove that, that the fact that he's just one season back from a torn ACL, that he is the quarterback of the future for that team. I think he has a lot to prove this season. I think he wants to live up to that big contract they handed him. So I definitely got to pick the 49ers in this one. I just have too many question marks around the start of Mason Rudolph. Now, if I end up eating it later because he did well in this first game, I'll reconsider next week. But definitely this week, I'm going to take the 49ers. Next up, we have the New Orleans Saints versus the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. Dominic, who you got?
I love the Saints. They're my team, but when Drew Brees goes down, this whole offense takes a dive. Alvin Kamara is still a running back 1, but he's going to be a low-end running back 1. The same with Michael Thomas at the wide receiver position. Jared Cook has been doing nothing this year. The Saints defense is much better, but it can't do everything for them. The offensive line is great, but if they don't have anybody behind them, there's nothing they can really do. We'll have to see if it's Bridgewater or if they end up going to Taysom Hill. Bridgewater falls out, and I hope he does for the sake of my team. This may change. I know Seattle's defense is not that great, but Russell Wilson is, Chris Carson is, Tyler Lockett can be in spurts. DK Metcalf can only do one thing, but he does it very well, and it is at home in Seattle, so as much as I hate to say it, I'm going to have to pick against my team. I picked him against him last week, and I'm going to have to pick him against him again this week and go with Seattle.
Teddy Bridgewater needs all of his playmakers to step up this week. That includes Latavius Murray, Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, and Taysom Hill. They're going to have to lean a little bit more heavily on Taysom Hill, and they're going to have to scale back some of the plays that they would normally run with Breeze in order to continue to win over these 6 weeks that Breeze is going to be out. Meanwhile, Seattle, they've looked impressive, believe it or not. They've looked really impressive in that division. They've been having some impressive wins. I really think that this is going to be a good good season for them. Russell Wilson's going to always do really well, especially in that NFC West division. I'm expecting good things, even with so many issues still with that defense, especially in the secondary. I just feel like they just have the upper hand in this particular match. It's not that I don't like Bridgewater and I don't trust Bridgewater to be able to win games. I feel like against a team like the Seahawks, who can easily score at will, it's going to be a little bit tougher for them to be able to eke out a win. And so, yeah, I'm definitely going to have to take the Seahawks at home with the 12s, of course. Next up, we got the Los Angeles Rams versus the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland. Dominic, who you got?
Well, the last time the Rams went to the Midwest, there was an ugly game against Chicago where it was, I think, 9-6. It's going to be a lot higher scoring in this one because the Cleveland defense is not the Bears defense. The Rams defense is not as good as they were last year either. This is going to be a higher scoring game. Cleveland still didn't look good last night, even though they did win the game. Baker Mayfield is good. Odell Beckham obviously is great. He had, over 100 yards and a great touchdown last night. Did most of the work himself. Nick Chubb should have a coming out game this week as well. This one's actually another tough one for me to pick, but I just think that the Rams are going to go into Cleveland and make Cleveland 1-2 and make everybody in, Cleveland very nervous.
My only question for the Browns is, where is Jarvis Landry? My goodness, did he just disappear on that offense? I understand you guys got OBJ in the offseason, but come on. I think Nick Chubb has looked really great over these first few weeks or whatever. I expect bigger numbers out of him. I'm hoping eventually Baker finds Jarvis. Please find Jarvis for me. OBJ looked really, really good last night. Baker, he looked good. Their only questions really come on that defense. Myles Garrett needs to chill on those calls, man, because Jesus, they just kept getting him with those. That being said, I didn't see a whole lot out of Denzel Ward, which I was expecting more of this season. So I want the Browns defense to be a little better than what they are, and they just aren't. They beat up on a really bad team and lost their quarterback during the game. So you can't go by that matchup. You just really can't. I just don't think that the Browns are quite living up to the hype that was surrounding them in the preseason. We'll see going forward. The Rams, however, there's something going on when it comes to Todd Gurley, and I don't know what it is. He isn't playing every down. He's not scoring at will as people expected. He's not living up to, well, some people I guess weren't expecting a whole lot out of him because of that knee situation. But there were people like me that had higher beliefs that he was going to produce. He just isn't living up to that just yet, and I don't know what it's going to take for that to turn around. The Rams, however, still with Jared Goff, that offense is just so good, and his relationship with Cooper Kupp just keep lighting it up. So I definitely think that the Rams are going to take this one in Cleveland, unfortunately, and I think I'm going to have to start Jared Goff over Baker Mayfield this week just because of this matchup. And last up, we got the Chicago Bears versus the Washington Redskins in Washington. Dominic, who you got?
Yeah, this was a much better game, I guess, in the preseason than it is now. I'm sure Monday Night Football's kind of upset that they're getting a lot more, duds than they were hoping for, but they seem to do it every year. Chicago's defense is just sweltering. They're gonna swallow up and spit out this Redskins offense, if you can call it an offense. I know everybody's been in love with McLaurin the first couple of weeks, and he has been great, and he is definitely going to be the number one receiver there. So going forward, I think you can definitely go out on your waiver wire and try and pick him up. But for this week, I think he's going to be shut down. I think Adrian Peterson's going to be shut down, especially because he's not a pass catching back, so he's pretty much one-dimensional as well. Case Keenum's going to have a tough time finding anybody, especially if Jordan Reed is out again and it's just him and Vernon Davis trying to play pass catch to each other. So I'm going to have to go with the Bears in this one.
I'm hoping Jordan Reed is back. I don't know for sure that is going to be the case, because when Reed is healthy and playing, he's a phenomenal tight end. It's just he's not always healthy. He's notoriously injury prone, and that's a big issue with that team, is the health, especially of Jordan Reed. Case Keenum, like I have said previously, I'm not sold on him. I was not sold on him when he was with the Broncos last year. I'm not sold on him this season with the Redskins. I expect good numbers out of Adrian Peterson, but how heavily can you rely on him through the course of a season? We'll see. Until Geis comes back, there's going to be some decline in the numbers that I expect out of that run game. So having to rely too heavily on Case Keenum is going to result, unfortunately, at some point in a lot of interceptions. Chicago Bears defense is just doubt. Question marks still surround that offense. I want to see more out of Tariq Cohen. Please, I need to see more out of Tariq Cohen. And Mitchell Trubisky, I think he'll get better as the season goes along, but just not quite up to what people thought he would be before the season started. Again, second season, we'll see. But I'm hoping for good things out of him. But Chicago, man, with that defense, it's just no question whatsoever on who you have to pick this week. So definitely taking the Bears in that matchup. And that's all our games. So Dominic, give me your survivor pool pick for the week.
All right, so I guess we're not really going against each other. We just have to pick obviously, I think pretty much you have to go, unless it's a division game like maybe the Jets or something, I think you have to go with whoever's playing the Dolphins. So you can easily take Dallas here. You could take the Patriots if you haven't used them yet. You know, those are both going to be two, I think, really popular picks, but I also think they're probably going to be the best fixed picks for you to use this week. And as much as I hate to say it, if you haven't used them yet, I think you might even be able to use Seattle against New Orleans, because I just don't think that they're going to be able to get it done up in Seattle this week.
So as much as it pains me to do this, I'm going to say take the Packers. I know they're facing the Broncos. I just really feel like Aaron Rodgers is going to put on a clinic there in Green Bay. So definitely, if you haven't had them yet, take Green Bay in that one. And another one, I think if you haven't used them yet, like you said, any team facing the Dolphins, you should definitely take. So yeah, take Cowboys if you haven't used them already. And last up, Dominic, I need you to give me one start and one sit in fantasy this week.
A start this week. Say we have to go against some bad. We'll try and do some bad defenses or whatever. I know he's a star, yes, but he's been disappointing so far this year. But as you said, the secondary of the Broncos played bad last week, and they've been playing bad all this year. So if he's on your team, obviously I would say start Devontae Adams. I mean, I know it's pretty easy to say because he's one of the top guys, but he has been a little disappointing. Also, I do kind of like, if you need a waiver wire pickup and you have to start somebody, I also like James Washington in the game with Pittsburgh, because he does have that rapport, not just because he played in Oklahoma State, but also because with Mason Rudolph being the backup and James Washington being a backup in the offseason, they work together a lot, on the second team offenses as well, so they have the rapport from there as well. So you can start James Washington as well. If you want to sit somebody, I know the Ravens defense is very good, and I know Robinson had a great game last week, 179 and 2 touchdowns, but if you're going to pick him up this week, I wait another week. I wouldn't start him this week against this Ravens defense. I would sit on him a week and hold him.
Great. Well, that's all the time we have today, ladies and gentlemen. Please be sure to follow Dominic at EnvisionFF on Twitter. You can follow me at TheNFLGirl320. You can read more of my thoughts on SheKnowsProFootball.com. You can catch up with Dominic on
FantasyHotRead.com.
And that's all the time we have, you guys. We'll see you back here next week.